There are four main types of texts that you can use in Makecode Arcade. They are sprite say, splash, long text, and input. To use the sprite say code, this is found in the sprites toolbox, and it will create a dialog bubble above your sprite that will follow it no matter where it moves on the stage. You can type in any message you want, but these are usually used for very short messages. If you click on the plus sign, you can determine how long the message will stay on the screen. And you can determine if it's going to all show up at once or be typed out little by little. Now let's take a look at the end game message. If you go to the Game tab, you can find one that says Use message for win that you can toggle to lose as well. If you add it before a game over code, then when your game ends, your special message will splash across the screen. Now let's explore the splash screen. In the game toolbox, you'll find a block that says Splash. Adding something to this will create a line of text directly in the middle of the screen. If it's really long, the player might have to wait for it to scroll. Clicking on the plus sign here will give you another line of text. 2 lines is the most you can use on a splash screen. Let's take out the splash and put in some long text. Long text shows up on the bottom, top, or either side of the screen and can have more words than a splash. Generally, a long text on the top or bottom will allow easier reading than side to side, but the left or right could be a good place for short messages. Now let's take a look at some input text. Inside of a splash text, you can ask the player to input some information, either an integer or a string. Remember, an integer is a whole number variable, and a string is a variable that is more like a text variable that can include letters, numbers, and punctuation. In this case, I'm asking the player to give me a name, which will be a string variable. This is where we can get creative with the variables. I'm going to create a new variable called player name, and I'm going to store the value of whatever the player inputs as this variable. I use the set to block from the variables tab, and then move my input question to be the value of that variable. Now that I've stored the input in a variable, I can use that variable in other places in my game. For example, I can pull out a splash text and add the variable as the second line in my text. Now when the player enters their name, my sprite can tell them hello back. Now that we've set that input into a variable, we can use it in other parts of our game. For example, in having an NPC say something to the player. We're going to add a new sprite here, and instead of kind player, we're going to give it a new kind. We're going to call it NPC. When the player reaches the NPC, we want it to trigger the text. So we're going to use an overlap conditional, where if the player overlaps the NPC, then the text will be displayed. We'll have it display as a splash on the screen. We'll find our player name variable and add it to the splash, and use the second line to add in some more words to create a phrase. Now when the player interacts with the NPC with that overlap event, the text with the player's name will display on the screen. We can add more to our text by going to Advanced and finding the Text toolbox, where we can pull out the join code. We want this to be all on one line, so we're going to put aside our variable for now and move it into the join code, where we can join the variable and some text that we have written. We've written our text, so now let's add the variable back in. We can even click the plus sign to create more text after the variable. Now when we overlap our NPC, it should say a phrase, our player's name, and then some more text. Now that you know how to use text in your game, you can be creative and see what you come up with.